How's everybody going? How is everybody doing tonight? And let me know if you can hear me and see me and all that good stuff. All right, thanks, man. I appreciate it. So, how's everybody doing tonight? Little roll call. Where are we watching from tonight? I'm coming at you from Utah. Tonight, I want to do a couple of songs that can be played. You can play it as a duet, like with a friend, or if you have a looper pedal, you could loop the rhythm and then play the melody over the top of it. I just checked the tabs and I already found I found a typo on one part of it, and then for some reason it's not the whole thing. So I'm going to share a couple of links with you where you can, because I'm just going to be kind of briefly touching on these songs, but I'm going to give you a couple of links where you can actually watch the full-on video that I did for these songs, and so you can get all the extra parts and everything. Dallas, Texas. Hello, Opa. Yeah, Opa. Thanks for joining us tonight. All right, so as usual, there are hello, Harold. There are tabs for this in the link in the description for this video. You can download the tabs so you can follow along with this stuff. So we're going to be looking at two songs. The first one we're going to look at is it's a Tom Petty song, Breakdown, because it's got a lot of really good little lead melody stuff over it that's all in the pentatonic scale. It's really easy to play, but it just sounds really nice, and hopefully it can, stuff that not only is it going to be fun to play, but, maybe give you some ideas. Snowy Ohio. Yeah, this is actually, we usually get hammered. It's been kind of a mild winter as far as snow. It's cold as hell. Oh, thanks, Alan. This is actually not a Floyd Rose. This is actually a Kaler Spider. This was factory on this guitar when I bought it. Oh, hi, Crit. Oh, so you started working with the finger picking course then? Canalita out of California. All right. So, hopefully you got the tabs. So for Breakdown, when you look at the transcription, you'll see that it's set up as a duet. So for any of you that do not know what I mean by that, I mean, I'm sure you know what a duet is, but when you look at it on the sheet music, if you look over on the left-hand side, you've got a line of manuscript and then a line of tab, and then underneath of it, another line of manuscript, another line of tab. But on the left side, the bar, the very first bar, connects both of those staffs together. So that means that you're playing, if you're guitar one, you would just play the top line. And then when it goes to the next page, you continue playing the top line, and guitar two would play guitar two, the bottom line. But we're going to go over both parts, and then you can loop this rhythm. It's because it's really simple. It's just two chords. Oh, well, that's great, Crit. I'm really happy to hear that. I'm glad that you enjoyed it and that it was helpful for you. Yeah. So starting off, we've just got two chords. We've got A minor and G major. Now, with this, if the way you play G is with the open B string, it's fine. You versus either way is totally fine. So don't go out of your way to try to reinvent the wheel there, playing your G chord. All right, so for the rhythm for this, it's pretty simple. So we start off with this A minor, and it's a quarter note on the downbeat of 1. So that's going to be like 1, and then on the downbeat of 2, we have a muted strum. That's what those X's are there on the tabs. So there's a few different ways that you can do this. The way that I do it is I just slap the strings. So when the strings are vibrating and you slap them and they bottom out against the fret wire, it'll make that kind of sound. Or you can just take your fingers on your left hand and, maybe you could, I don't know, I'm not coordinated enough to do it with this. Some chords I can actually just use another finger, but this isn't one of them. So what you could do is you could lay your fingers across like that and just give a strum like that, so you get that kind of percussive sound. And that's an 8th note on the downbeat of 2. And then on the and of 2, you switch to a G, and so it's a dotted quarter note. So that's going to be like and 3 and then you strum it again on 4, and then it just goes to the next major, which is basically the same thing. Hi, Harold. You mean the tabs for what we're doing right now? If you just go to if you click on the description of this video, there's a link in there where you can download them. Yeah, so that's basically, it's just going to be, so it's kind of a strange rhythm, but it just sounds really good. This Tom Petty, he could make anything catchy. I mean, like some of his riffs they're so good, and then when you learn them, you're like, oh my gosh, that's all he's doing. And they're just very talented guy. Oh, the Poconos. What's the weather like there? Yeah, so it's got this rhythm just. Now, like I said, I'm not sure. I don't have anybody to blame but myself, but somewhere I screwed up and I didn't. This isn't complete. So if you here, can't walk and chew gum at the same time. Bear with me a second here. Okay, so I just put there, I meant to do it all in one comment, but I hit enter. So if you go to that link, there's actually a full lesson I did on this song. So it has like some of the other stuff that I didn't include, but I'm just going to show you how to do it because it's really easy. Even without the tab, you'll be able to play it. It's pretty simple. So you're on that verse, or the intro and the verse. And it just goes through that, and then at the end of the verse, after the G, it just goes to an F, and then that's like where it will lead into the next verse, and then it also goes into the chorus from there. So for the chorus, it's the A minor, G, F, G, A minor, G, F, like that. It's pretty simple. So yeah, so that's like the basicness of the rhythm part itself. Because I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time on this because it's pretty easy. Now for the Connecticut. Sorry, God, I should have cleaned my glasses before I got on here. Everything's all blurry. Amazes you play without looking. Okay, so I'm going to tell you something right now for all of you. For all of you who feel like that it's difficult to play without looking, you are already better at it than you think you are. In fact, right now, if you've got your guitar, I want you to play A minor and then switch to G, but don't look. Just let your ear tell you if you've done it right. So it sounds nice, but if I play it and then something sounds wrong, then I can glance over, oh, okay, and then you're already better at playing without looking than you think you are. This is something I talk about this at least once every day with a student, because everybody feels that way, that they think that they have to look. And then there isn't anything wrong with looking, but it's really freeing once you find out that you already can do that. You play this in the dark to practice. Yeah, that worked too. Close your eyes, play in the dark, whatever. Okay, so let's look at the melody part for this, like the little lead thing for it. So the whole thing is just right out of the A minor pentatonic scale. So if the only pattern that you know is this box pattern here, that it's probably the first scale that you ever learned, just for most people. You can play it, all of the notes are in there, but like that little melody, the only thing is that those aren't the strings that he's actually playing at. That first note he's playing is actually up here on the B string. So I'm going to show you how to play it that way. So if you were here when I did I did a live stream that was just basically about the pentatonic scales. It was kind of like a Blues 101. And I did these other patterns, the ones that I called pattern 2 and 3. So pattern 2 was this one. If you remember that, that's where this is out of. Now you can play this, like I'm going to show you how to play it now. You got the tabs, but without knowing the scale pattern, and it's not going to make a big difference. But if you do know that pattern, it makes it a lot smoother. Okay, so okay, I am on the right page. So when you're doing this, like with the duet, like if you were playing with another person and they're playing guitar 1, so they're they play through that first measure and then you rest. And then on the second measure, you rest on the first 2.5 beats. So you rest 1, 2, 3, and then on the end of 3, you hit this first note. So what we've got here is I'm on the 8th fret of the high E string with my first finger. So we hit that as an 8th note, like I said, right on the end of 3. And then you're just going to take that first finger and move it from the 8th fret of the E string, move it down to the 8th fret of the B string, and then put your third finger onto the 10th fret of the B string. And then we're going to pick that 10 and pull to 8, and then follow that with 9 on the G string with your middle finger. And that's a triplet. So that's, triple or 4 yellow, the way I like to count it. So you've got, then on the next measure, the third measure, you're going to be right back to this 8 again. So as I come down, you see I just leave my first finger here, so that way I'm ready to go back into it. We go back to that 8, 1, and then on the end of 1, we hit that 10 with some vibrato, and it's tied to beat number 2, and it's also tied to the downbeat of 3, but like only half of it because it's a 16th note. So you'd have, and then you would come back to 8 here on the second 16th note, and then you rest for the rest of the measure and then the following measure. So the whole thing together would be like, and behind that is the, Already screwed up. All right. So before we move on, does anybody have any questions thus far? Is there anything that maybe you're not clear on, not quite understanding, or maybe I did a shitty job of explaining it? You know, could be lots of things like that. Anybody? That's one of the main reasons that I like you. You're not perfect and it's cool. What do you mean I'm not perfect? Look at me. Perfect. Perfection right here. Oh, you're picking up what I'm putting down? Good. Good to know. Good to know. Okay, so after you you hit that last, and then you rest for the remainder of that measure, you rest for two more, and the rhythm guitar is still doing the. Okay, and then start. So now we're on the second page of the tabs. And forgive me that I don't know why they have to be like this. Why it can't just be like a full page PDF. But they have to be put into this ping format for some reason. I don't know all the ins and outs of that technical part of it. So anyway, yeah, we ended right there on that 8. So starting on it would be measure 7. So it's the second measure on page 2. We're going to start right on the downbeat of 1. Now, you're going to do this with one finger. Now, for me, if you've watched me for any amount of time, you already know that I favor my middle finger over my first finger for things like this for whatever reason. So that's how I play it, is I use my middle finger. Now, you could use your first finger, and then when you shift up here, switch fingers, whatever. This is just kind of how I've always done it. So you start on 10, and we're going to pick that, and it's an 8th note. And then on the end of 1, we're going to slide to 8, and then the downbeat of 2 back to 10. So it's like 1 and 2, and then on the end of 2, we go to the 9th fret of the G string. And it's tied to beat 3. So you got... And then starting on beat 4, you're already here on 9. You're going to do this. We're going to do the same thing we just did, but now we're going to slide from 9 down to 7, back to 9, to 7 on the D string. So far. Now we're going to do, starting here, 7, slide to 5, back to 7, and then ending it with 7 on the A string. So that's that whole melody line right there, and it's 2 measures long. It's really, I mean, after you get it down, it's like pretty easy, but it just sounds really good. It's kind of fun to play with those slides, and it's just, it's such an iconic melody that, like, you play it, everybody knows it. Oh, don't feel stupid. It's breakdown. Teachers used to always tell me that there's no, oh, people are already answering it for me. Teachers used to always tell me there's no such thing as a dumb question or a stupid question. So I tend to kind of follow that. I mean, I ask questions all the time about things that I feel like, God, I should know this, but it doesn't always work that way. Yeah. So if, whoops. All right. right, so that's kind of like the main melody line that is repeated throughout this whole thing. So after we hit that 7 here, that's on the and of 4. And then on the downbeat of the next measure, we rest. And then, well, actually, it's all of beat 1. It's a quarter note rest. And then we're going to, starting on the downbeat of 2, we've got this rake thing here. So what I'm doing is I'm just barring my first finger across the 5th fret of the G, B, and high E string. Now by doing this, I'm actually playing. It's an A minor triad. So it just fits in with the riff or the chord progression. So when you do things like this, you don't want it to be like you kind of, the technique for it, it's not really like a sweep, it's a rake. So you're kind of just going across the strings, and I like to do it like really staccato, so it kind of gives it more of that kind of gritty sound that he's got on that. So you do that on the downbeat of 2, and then on the and of 2, you're going to go to the 8th fret of the B string. So I'm going to use my pinky because it would be like right out of the A minor pentatonic scale. So we hit that on the and of 2, and then it's tied to a dotted quarter note. So it takes up all of beat 3 plus the downbeat of 4, and then on the and of 4, we go back to the 5th fret here. So. All right, so it's annoying. I have to scroll to the next page. Okay, yeah. So on measure 9, which is the top of page 3, it's kind of it's just annoying. I couldn't remember what it was. Okay, so I'm going to play that whole sequence again because after this is where it starts over. So on that measure, after you do on the next measure, measure 9, you rest on the downbeat of 1, and then on the whole beat of 1. It's a whole, oh my God, it's a quarter note. And then on the downbeat of 2, you hit 5 here on your B string, 2, and then on the and of 2, we go to the 7th fret of the G string. And then that rings out until the and of 4, and then there's a rest. So to me, it just sounds like that was just when the note decayed off, like he didn't intend to necessarily put a rest right there. It's just when the note faded, or it could just be because now he's transitioning back to the other part. So that whole thing would be like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Man, I'm really doing great tonight. And then it's going to go back into that again. Okay, so when it starts back over again on this page, it's still those same notes, but on this first one, instead of slides, it sounds to me like he's doing a pull off and a hammer on, and then the slides again. And then it would just go right back into that part of it again. So like I said, that link that I posted there, if you go to that, you can get the tabs for like the entire song, and I go through the entire song, all the different parts and stuff in there. What I was kind of wanted to do with this tonight is, because we're going to look at another song too, is that I just kind of wanted to have something that was pretty easy to pick up quickly, that you can play with a friend, or you can use a looper, or even, even if you don't have a looper or a friend, you can just use the voice recorder on your phone, or the video camera. If you don't want to see yourself, just lay your phone face, turn it so it isn't aiming at you or whatever, but just record that part, and then while it's playing back, then you can do that part, but hopefully do it better than me. Yeah, so that about does it for that one, unless anybody has any questions or anything that they have about this. Or also, as usual, this is just like, Q&A. So if you've got any guitar related questions in general, not necessarily about this song or whatever, you can lay those on me as well. Something we haven't done in a long time is we haven't played Stump the Dummy. For those of you who don't know what Stump the Dummy is, it's just like a little game we've played on here before, where you try to ask a question that I can't answer. And it's not very hard to find a question that I can't answer. And that's not to say that, I know everything, so ask away. No, it's just kind of fun sometimes. Some of the questions that people have come up with are, guitar related questions. Don't start asking questions that, I don't want to talk about, politics and religion and all that kind of stuff, but we can talk about, guitar stuff, or just music stuff in general. All right. So let's go on to the next one. So for the next one, we're going to be doing a little Eric Clapton. So this is from Wonderful Tonight. And again, the tab's just a skosh short. So I'm going to put the link in here for the full lesson that I did on this, so that way you can get like the remainder of the tabs. And then also there's something I have to point out on here, the typo, and I don't know if it's like this on the other one. I hope not, but it's a pretty simple fix. So if you're looking at your tabs right now, so this is page 4, on the second measure on the G string, it shows that it's played open. That should actually be a 2. And when we get to that part of the song, I'll show you what it is. It's just, I probably think I know what happened. I think I just copied measure 1 over to measure 2 and changed the root note from G to F sharp. And I think when I did that, I just forgot to change that open G string to the, 2nd fret to an A. Let's see. Your son's got a question here. Is it better to turn up the amp? Oh, hold on. Got a pop-up window. All right. Is it better to turn up the amp and play the strings lightly, or less volume and more heavy-handed on the strings? Well, that kind of depends upon, as to what it is that you're playing. If you, let's think about it for a second, like as an acoustic guitar. If you're playing an acoustic guitar, you don't have any volume knob or anything. So the only way you can control the dynamics and volume of the guitar is by playing soft or playing hard. It's really the same thing with the electric guitar. You don't think of it as like it's just set up at one. You only play one way and then you just compensate forever by turning the amp up and down. It doesn't really work that way, because you can get, by playing softer, versus picking harder. You can actually change the tone of the guitar. And then if you're using a tube amp, they can be really dynamic, where if you pick harder or actually control the volume knob on the guitar itself, you can, control how, if the amp breaks up or not. That's another thing too, especially if you're kind of new with electric guitars. The volume knob is very misleading. It's not really a volume knob. It's not like, if I've got it turned down, there's nothing. And as I turn it up, it gets louder. But it's not the same as like the volume knob is on your amplifier. So like on your amplifier, on a tube amp, there's a little bit there. If you've ever played like a 100-watt tube amp and you're trying to play it at really, really quiet, so like you're living in an apartment, it doesn't sound good. They don't really sound good until they get cranked up, so they have enough juice going through it. But aside from that, if let's just say that you're using a solid state amp, or you have an attenuator or something on your tube amp, think of the volume knob on the guitar is more like a dimmer switch on a light. So I don't know if anybody even uses those things anymore. My parents still have them. So you like walk into the living room, and instead of being a switch, it's a knob, and you can turn it. You can make the lights really bright or make them really lighter. So that's kind of what this does. Think of it more like it's like a rheostat cutting how much magnetic pole or how much power is actually going to the pickups. So you can have like your amp with a lot of gain and the knob the volume turn up loud and have like a lot of distortion, but then you can just back it off a little bit and the guitar is still plenty loud, but it just cleans up because you're not sending so much juice to the pickups. So I hope that answers your questions. You don't want to play like super meek, but you also don't want to be, just beating the hell out of it constantly either. You got to kind of find that happy medium. And a lot of that just kind of comes with experience. All right. So we're going to look at Wonderful tonight. And for the parts that we're doing here, we've only got, I think, just 4 chords. Yeah. So we've got G major. Oh, no problem. I hope that helped. Maybe we should do that one of these nights for one of these streams, is just do just kind of basic, how you get tone, like we can play with an amp and play with the controls on the guitar and just kind of experiment, and kind of so you can get an idea of stuff you can get. I'm not really, really great at doing that. There's been lots of times when I've heard somebody playing and it's like, man, I just love that sound. And so I'll acquire the amp that they have or the pedal they're using or whatever. And it still doesn't sound the same way. It doesn't sound that way when I play, because a lot of your tone actually just comes from your hands. It's just with your playing itself. A really, really great guitarist can sound great on anything. That's why there's all those videos of, like, I saw one of Steve Stevens playing like a Hello Kitty 3/4 size, borderline toy guitar, and it still sounded like him. It still sounded great, All right, so we have got we've got G, and then the next chord is D suspended 2 over F sharp. So there's a couple of ways that you can play it. If you're familiar with D over F sharp, where you play it with your thumb, you can just take your middle finger off so the high E string is open. But that's what I was talking about, is that on the tab there, it shows on that chord on the second measure that the G string is open, and it shouldn't be open. It should actually be the 2nd fret. So the way I play it, I don't really like using my thumb if I don't have to, because it's a little bit painful. Last week or not last week, yesterday, I think, or it could have been last week, who knows. I was showing you guys like scars on my hand from a car accident and how my thumb. So when I have it up and I bend it over like that, it's pretty uncomfortable. So how I do it is when I switch from the G, I take my pinky off, move my first finger from the second fret of the A string to the second fret of the low E, and then drop my second finger onto the second fret of the G string. But I do that all in one motion, obviously. So we got G, okay. Sorry. I just glanced up at this. Alan put the Angus D, and I swear when I looked up, I thought it said the anus D, and I was like, whoa, we're getting a little off track here. Yeah, so we got G, and then we've got the D suspended 2 over F sharp, and then C and D. Now, that link that I put in there, if you go to that, you can get like the whole rest of the song, and I go into like much more detail than I'll be going into tonight over this. So this is pretty simple. It's just all kind of arpeggiated. You could play this with your fingers, but I always just kind of played it with a pick. So I'm just going to call off the strings. E, D, B, G, E, B, G, B. And that's kind of the picking pattern for most of this. And it's all just eighth notes. So it's like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then we go to the next measure, the D suspended 2 over F sharp, the exact same picking pattern. Then we go to a C, and the C it's a little different. D, G, B, D, E, B, G, D. And then on the fourth measure, we go to D, D, G, B, D, D, B, oh my gosh, D, G, B, D, G, B, G, D. And again, it's all with eighth notes. So it's like. All right. Now, with this, it's when you're, arpeggiating the strings like that, even if you've done this a million times, had a lot of experience, it's very, very easy to accidentally pick the wrong string. So like, for example, where I do it a lot is I always end up hitting the A string there. Does that sound bad when I do that? No, of course it doesn't, because it's still notes that are in the chord. So when I play stuff like this, I don't like put a lot of stress on myself of, I got to make sure I hit every note just right. I just kind of wing it. If you're hitting the right chord, you're hitting notes that are in the chord, and you've got the right timing, it's going to work and it's going to sound good. A good example of that is Hotel California. At the beginning of it, it's got the I probably never play that the same way twice. And what I just did isn't even remotely close to exactly how they're playing it, but it's close enough. I've always kind of been more about, if I'm going to spend a whole bunch of time like really getting a riff or a lick down, one, it's got to be something that is absolutely, just amazing, or it's got to be one of my own riffs. I love this song. I played it a million times, but it isn't something that I'm going to spend, 1,800 hours trying to perfect, making sure I'm doing all those parts just, exactly the same. Oh, Rusty, you've been working on the intro for Hotel California? All right, so that's the intro, like, riff. And then it just starts over again. So let me make sure that, yeah, so what we're doing here is 8 measures long, and it's, so that's 4 measures, and then it just does the same thing again. And looking on page 5, that second measure there, which is measure 6, it's the same thing, where it should be a 3 and it's instead of the 0 there on the G string. If you want to be able to play the intro to Hotel California and really nail it, you are going to have to put a lot of time into it, because it's not easy. It's pretty tricky to get, to jump all over those strings. When I see things like that or things like this, I think, man, boy, whoever did this, they must be really good. They're really articulate. Well, if you notice that it's kind of a very similar kind of repeating pattern, it's probably just a pattern that they just play all the time anyway, and they're just good at it. There's certain patterns that I've played enough that I don't even have to think about it, and I know that I'll be playing it right. All right, so now, oh, so you're doing the version with the capo on the 7th fret. So I have my own rendition of that song where I actually capo on the 2nd fret, because then you A minor, E7, G, D, F, C, D minor, and then back to E7. It makes it pretty easy. Maybe I'll do that, teach you guys how to play that song one of these nights. Although I'll probably, the Eagles police will come on and shut me down. They're one of the worst ones for doing copyright strikes. All right, so for the melody line part on this, again, we're looking at the pentatonic scale. This time, it's an E minor pentatonic, so we're doing pattern 1 all the way up here. So first finger, is going to play all the notes on the 12th fret, and then 12, 15, 12, 14, 12, 14, 12, 14, 12, 15, 12, 15. Now, this little melody in this, it's really simple, but this is like real ear candy to me. I just love the way this. I just think it sounds really, really good. Now, I kind of added a little extra stuff in there, kind of put my own flavor on it, and you can do the same thing. So we're going to start off. You're going to want to put your first finger on the 12th fret of the G string and your third finger on the 14th fret of the G string. And this comes in on the downbeat of 3. So we rest 1, 2, and then we're going to bend that up a whole step. So you're going to bend it up from the A to a B. So we bend that a whole step and then release. So it's 3 and 3 and. So we're coming up on the bend on the downbeat of 3 and then releasing the bend on the upbeat or offbeat of 3. And then for the downbeat of 4, we go to the 12 and the end of 4 back to 14. So now that's all of the first measure. So on the second measure, it starts off, that 14 is tied to it as a half note. So when you and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and. So it's the same thing as the first measure, except the last note, instead of being 14 on the G string, it's 14 on the D string. So. Same deal. That 14 on the D string is tied to the downbeat of 1 on the next measure, which is a half note. So you let that ring out for and 1, 2, and then 3 and 4 and then that just tied to a whole note of the fourth measure. So So pretty simple to play. And he does like a million variations on this throughout the song. So what I like to do to kind of make it kind of more, of my own, I like that raking into it. So what I'm doing is I'm heavily muting the lower strings and just strumming across them fairly quickly, so it's more of like a noise. Noise is that's kind of an ugly word. It's more, it's like a percussive sound. It's like an effect. Now, when I do that 12, I hammer onto the 14 and throw some vibrato on it. Do the same thing when I come to here. Now, you don't have to do any of that stuff. I just like to do it because not that the way it's originally done doesn't sound good. It's just kind of practice. A really good way to kind of develop your own licks and style and stuff is when you play other people's stuff is, after you can play it well. I mean, I used to say just right out of the gate, don't try to play it right, just make it your own right out of the gate. But then I kind of changed my mind about that later on. And I do think there is a lot of good and benefits that come from learning other people's licks, especially these bluesy style things, because like what we're learning here is Clapton, but it's Clapton, but it's something that Clapton took from somebody else, like he, something that, you heard Robert Johnson do. So he liked that. And then somebody else does something that somebody else did. So it all kind of gets, passed around. I see this often enough. How do you play a measure that starts with a slide to a note? Like 4, for example. So do you mean that, so like the very beginning of the measure, like maybe even on the downbeat of 1, there's a note on the tab, and then it's got a line on the left side of it, like it's pointing up to the note. Is that what you're referring to? All right. So after where we left off, now we're on the top of page 5. We have the same thing again. Yeah, that's what I mean. There's no note. So like if you had tab that said slide from 3 to 5, it would show a 3 with a line connecting over to slide to 5, right? Well, if it's just, there's no 3, it's just like slide to 5, that's what's called a slide from nowhere. So if it was a slide from 3 to 5, I would start on 3, I'd pick that, and then slide to 5. If it's a slide from nowhere, I can still start on 3, but instead of going pick, slide, you pick and slide simultaneous. So it doesn't really matter where you start. I could start on 4. I could start on 3. I could start on 2. I could start on 1. It's going to sound the same. But I would recommend that when you do stuff like that you usually just, if it's showing a slide from nowhere to 5, start at 3. Usually just sliding up a whole step is long enough that you get the sound, you get that vibe of the slide, but it's not such a long slide that you end up screwing up. I mean, like if it was like a slide from nowhere to the 14th fret, you wouldn't want to go all the way up like that because you're going to increase your chances of screwing up. But if you just start away. Yeah, so the note on there, it's saying this is where you've slidden to. Is there anything, I don't suppose there's anything like that on any of this stuff that we've looked at. Okay, actually, yeah. If we look at, we go back and if you look at your tabs for the Tom Petty one, you can see where that has like 9, slide to 7, back to 9. So if you just got rid of the first 9 and the first 7, so it's just that line pointing up to 9, you could start at 7 and pick and slide simultaneous to 9. You could start at 5 and do it. But I usually just go like a step, maybe a step and a half, but no more than that, because it ends up, as you can see by everything that I've done tonight, I make mistakes. And so that just increases the amount of mistakes that I end up making. Okay, what is going on here? Oh, there it is. Yeah, so for this last part of Wonderful Tonight, start off the same way. So on that third measure, you do the bend, release to 12 on the G string. Then on that next measure, we're going to go to 14, and this is all quarter notes. So it's like 1 to the 12th fret, 2 to the 13th fret, to the 12th fret of the first string. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you don't have the tab for the last note, which is the 15th fret of the B string. So what we've got there, we've got like notes out of a little arpeggio, out of a little chord there. And then that's where, it's late in the evening. So it goes into the vocal part there. And then after the verse, it does that again. He does that a lot throughout it. But it's in that other tab that I put the link up there for, it's much more extended, and I kind of go into a lot more detail on both of those songs over that. All right, so that does it for those two songs that I wanted to go over. We made pretty good time. We still got a few minutes here, so if you've got questions, I might possibly have answers. So ask away. Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. I have no idea. I don't want to get into all of the the logistics of everything, but I don't know. There may not even be a name. Hell, I don't know. This could, your guess is as good as mine. But if anybody's still got ideas, keep them coming in. I've been making a list. Oh, thank you, Alan. I appreciate it. Oh, if nobody has any questions or anything, we can just wrap this up a couple of minutes early. But yeah, I really appreciate everybody coming out and stuff. This is all starting to kind of grow pretty good. I mean, we're far from being, where it's a viral or anything like that, but it's nice to see that there's people here, and the people who are engaged in with what we got going on, and you seem to dig the content. Oh, you're just going to keep calling Uncle D's Guitar Garage or something like that. Let me see. Put it there. Yeah, Uncle D's Guitar Garage. That's pretty good. I like that. Guild Acoustic. Also, a while back, I'd mentioned a few different times about that that I do private lessons, and I'm available to do them online through Google Meet. And I put an email address in there, and anyhow, I found out that it's a dead email address. It's one I set up through Google for Google Meet, but it's only outgoing. It's not incoming at all, so I can't receive anything on it. So if anybody is interested in that, you can just hit me up here. This is my website, and you can read about about what I do and all that kind of stuff. And then it has a place in there where you can contact me if anybody's interested in stuff like that. Yeah, I don't. As far as a guild, I mean, 475 could be a deal, or I don't know. I don't really know too terribly much about them. I've only ever played one once, and it was a long time. It was like 30 years ago at least. Oh, well, thank you, Dorf. I appreciate that. I really do. Thank you very much. I try. I mean, when teaching was always kind of like a side job kind of a thing, part-time deal. But then when I retired from auto mechanics and just went into doing this full time, I at that point I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, I need to do a good job and try to set myself apart from other instructors. So one of the things, I write my own curriculum. I don't use books or anything like that. And so everything is kind of custom tailored to the individual. Everybody's different. And so there is no one size fits all method for learning. Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's one of the t-shirts that we have, band merch. Haven't worn one for a long time, so I thought I'd wear one today. Oh, great. I'm glad. I try to make it's really hard to kind of walk a fine line of making it simple that people can understand, but not so simple that they get bored and go, oh my God, this guy's never going to get to the point, and then move on. I have the tendency sometimes to rattle off at the mouth for longer than I should, especially if I'm talking about something that I'm passionate about. Then it's hard to get me to shut up sometimes. And then I don't know if anybody noticed from when I did Guitar Show and Tell that this is that Strat, but I'm back to the single coils again. I just do this every once in a while. I just switch back, but I've been kind of digging it. I've been playing a lot more with cleaner tones and less gain than I used to. So I've been really kind of enjoying playing the single coils, and I absolutely love that middle single coil sound. That country kind of stuff, I dig that. Oh yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean, Dorf. I try not to do that. I mean, there's a lot of guys that I watch and I don't think that they're really trying to teach per se. The ones that I'm referring to anyway. They're just showing stuff, and sometimes I wish I had the skill to be able to do a lot of the things that I see other people do on there, but I just try to do me. All right, well, we have reached the end again, my friends, and I really appreciate you coming out here and spending an hour with me. If you like the content that I'm doing, I know every YouTuber says this kind of stuff, but it's the facts. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave comments. All the comments that you're doing now are in the live chat replay, but this video will be rerun. And when it's rerun, you can actually just re-comment again. You can leave more comments. So the more stuff like that, it makes the algorithm better. It shows them that that I'm doing, that I'm trying to do a good job, and that you guys are digging the content. So yeah, it really helps. When is the next stream? Probably not till Tuesday. I'm trying to get it worked out to where I can do it more than just Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but with my teaching schedule on Thursdays is kind of a mess. So it'll probably be a while before I can work into that, but I'll be here, unless something happens unforeseen. I should be here next Tuesday and Wednesday again. Also, like in the comments, not necessarily like in here necessarily, but after this is over, just go back to the rerun and actually leave comments there if you have ideas for things that you would like to see covered in live streams. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a guitar lesson, like like this is how you play this song or whatever. It can be on stuff like that, or it could be on like we were talking about earlier, like dialing in an amp, guitar adjustments, like we've done one before. We soldered in a pot emitter, we've replaced a switch, we've restrung a guitar, set intonation. Well, kind of. We should probably do that again and like spend more than 5 minutes on it. But yeah, there's plans for doing other things with this, where like maybe I can have like guests and like do like interviews, just different stuff like that, or just kind of there's probably some days where I'm going to come on and I'm just going to want to just we can chat, we can just discuss, we can debate over who's the better guitar player, who did it better, Jimmy Page or Jimi Hendrix, things like that. We could do stuff like that. Could be a lot of fun. All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming out. I really appreciate it. And I will see you in the next, well, I won't see you. You'll see me, but in the next live stream. So have a good night, everybody. Oh, wait a minute. You're more of a guitar tech than a guitar player, but I'm getting better at playing now. Oh, well, being a guitar tech's a good thing too. I used to do a lot of repairs, and I've kind of really backed away from it a lot as my vision has gotten bad. It's really hard for me to see anything up really close. It makes it really difficult. Yes, I could get a book and I'll read a book to you guys. That could be fun. All right. Thanks for everybody for coming out. Really appreciate it. Have a great night, everybody.